Well, hi, everybody. It's getting darn near the end of the year, 2020. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas yesterday, as surreal and different as it may have been for you. Here at Cyberhuman Frontiers, myself and my partner in the investigation, Mr. TMC, have been taking you on an odyssey of quantum phenomena in the brain. We're going to get off of that tonight, and we're going to take a little bit more of a look at some real-world stuff out there that's going on with the development of the ultra-wideband networks that are being built up all around us, and the coming, if it's not already here, connectivity to our brains. And we may touch a little bit on human DNA, but that's not the primary emphasis tonight. We want to take the quantum stuff is real, and we will be getting back to that, and it is quite complex, and it is amazingly powerful. It's a huge part of the reality of our lives. But tonight, we're going to just bring you to the latest devices, what's being built, what's going to be in the consumer product world of your near future, and maybe a little bit of speculation about why that's there and what can be done with it. And, technology can be good, it can be bad, it can be indifferent. I think that it is rarely indifferent. If we're lucky, a technological advance is good for us. And if we're, as it usually is, and we're not particularly lucky or particularly in control, then those new technologies are primarily being used for the purposes of some big company or institutions for furthering research processes or for making money to sell us things or to have put them in a greater position of power for controlling either their segment of the industry or maybe the whole world. Who knows? So we're going to show you the devices. You can make up your own mind. And just a little bit of a disclaimer before we go further into that. The points of view and purpose of this video is not to incite fear or violence or harass or bully in any way, but rather to share opinions and thoughts with other like-minded individuals curious about the subject to encourage awareness and conversation. The opinions expressed on this stream belong solely to the person espousing them and are not an expression of the channel Cyberhuman Frontiers, and this video does not claim to give any medical, legal, political, or financial advice. And the last part is this video and our YouTube channel in general may contain certain copyrighted works from time to time that were not specifically authorized to be used by the copyright holder, but which we believe in good faith are protected by federal law and the fair use doctrine for one or more of the reasons noted above. And the reasons noted above are detailed from the Copyright Act of 1976. So thank you for your patience while I read through that. A little bit of legalese there. And let's get right into it. TMC, how you doing tonight, brother?
Andy, I'm doing good. I think we got a good topic tonight. I'm happy
I'm thinking we're going to just bang right into that first one that we were just talking about, the one with the little girl with the interface unit on her arm. Where do you want to go first?
I think we should show the video of the brain with the MIT video that sort of paints the picture of what it is that we're really going to talk about, what the connection points are, so to speak. Yep,
I got that right here. All right, coming right up. You might wonder what the target is. Well, I'm going to show you the target. Where'd my Zoom tab go? Oh, there it is right there. Thank you for your patience. And we don't need to play sound. We'll kind of narrate this as we go through. It's fairly short. It gives you a little bit of an idea. Some really good animations out on the internet if you want to help enable yourself to visualize a little bit further, and they're really good. They do a nice job with the artwork. This one came from MIT, and what this is going to show there, the title for this one, very short, is Neuron Activity in 3D. So here we go. We start by taking a look at that brain. The cerebrum is what's pictured there in the frontal lobes. So we're going to zoom in. kind of like this. Side view. Okay, now let's go in. All right, well, we went way in really fast. Look at that network. It's like a spider web. It's like an immense wiring network. All these little lines that you see in here are either groups of nerves, or ganglia, or trunks of nerves. And I don't think we're down to individual neurons yet. Okay, now there is a brain neuron, multiple connections coming in and out. And you see these little blue things here. That looks like there might be some sort of an energetic pulse going between one or another of them. There we go. Ah, look at that little firing. I'll play that again. We're going to do our own show. These guys do a nice job explaining it, but we don't have time for that. We're going to have to go through it. So big takeaway here is this is an immensely complex organ. That brain that we're all walking around with in our heads, and these little things, these little wires, they're axons and dendrites. These are the connectors between brain neurons. Those guys can and do move to forge connections. It's like they build a road. When you're making a new memory and a new thought, the energy value of that memory and thought is held in a neuron. And then, depending on processes that we don't even quite understand, if that memory or thought is associated with another experience that you've had, by some means, the memory and the experience will forge a little roadway between the two. If you see my mouse pointer, all right, right here, you see a mouse pointer. And now just imagine that this was the taste of Coca-Cola. And imagine that this was a summer day when it was really hot out when you were a kid and you were just parched, your throat was parched, and then someone came along and gave you a Coca-Cola. That is a related memory because you can associate having that nice, cool, refreshing drink with that hot day. And what the kind of thing that the brain does is it actually wires itself. It forges little pathways between one part and the other. And now imagine a lifetime of experience and a lifetime of interrelated experiences in your knowledge base and specific memories that are all tied together based on that commonality. That is brain wiring. And it's it applies to any type of learning, any type of memory, whether it be an emphasis on mathematics or music or whatever. So it is absolutely intensely wild how complex and powerful and flexible that the brain is. It has what we would call neuroplasticity. That's the ability to modify itself on demand based on what you, by wherever your will resides in here, what you choose to program into your brain. And it can also be done from the outside. Experiences that impact on your life, they will cause forging of pathways that relate certain things. You may start to relate a certain type of feeling with the third time that you accidentally hit your thumb when you were banging nails in. That's an experience from the outside. Yes, maybe you swung the hammer, but darn it, that hammer really hurt. Well, think of many things from the outside environment. Media coming from the outside, whether it's watching the news, just being outside in the weather, 1 week of really cold, damp, wet, just dismal weather, that's going to forge kind of a short-term memory and a kind of a sense, a feeling. All these things. The neuroplasticity of the brain responds to all this. Have I gone on enough of a rant here, TMC? I got to just stop.
That's good. The bottom line is anything and everything that's happening with you, movements, thoughts, things that you don't even know are really going on, things like breathing or digestion or your organs doing different things to kind of just regulate you. They're all really governed here in the brain. And so outside of conscious memory, outside of trying to find the right words, outside of processing information through your eyes or your ears, Your brain's doing stuff all the time. There's a lot of valuable information to be had from that. If you can develop systems that interact and talk with the brain, then you can begin to know somebody better than they consciously know themselves. And that's really kind of the underpinning of what we're going to get our feet wet, so to speak, tonight with these types of technologies that are currently, they're out there. They're in commercial production at this point. Consumer grade, not military grade, not above military grade. We're talking consumer grade, which means that these technologies are likely much more advanced than what we're going to show you today.
So I want to just add one thing, that it's so worthwhile for us to consider exactly how flexible we are, and that it's not just everything in the outside environment that can alter our sentiment or our sense or our experience of life. We have the power to be able to control a whole lot of that. But there isn't anybody that comes knocking on your door every day and says, hey, you have the ability to control your outlook on everything, including maybe some of your capabilities and your capacity and what you choose to become more proficient at. You have all that power. You don't hear about that a lot, but we do. We do have all that power. But as you were just talking, TMC, the emphasis on the value of it, let's say that technology is operating in a purely benevolent way, right? That with a little bit of help from the outside, some sort of an interfacing device that can help the brain to deprogram a malfunctioning thought process, or to help it to learn a new process, a new matrix of memories that add up to either a knowledge base or a skill set that you didn't have before. So all this is what's on the table now. Anyway, we go with that. Should we go with freer logic yet? Where should we go?
Yeah, we might as well.
We want to do some reading? We have plenty to read, but we don't want people to get bored. So you know how that is.
I think we should go through the freer stuff and then go into the remote no contact components a little bit later.
Yep. All right. Okay, well, we have here a picture of a little girl, and let me just get that out of the way. Sorry about that. Got to get that out of the way. There we go. Learn more. Okay, so we're talking Body-Wave here, and the company is Freer Logic, and you can kind of help throttle this too as we go. All right. The Body-Wave armband is used in the Play Attention System, playattentionsystem.com. They have a website. You can go check out more of what it is. Play Attention is the world #1 neurocognitive system for ADHD. The armband measures a neurosignal used to monitor and train. Body-Wave is currently being used in apps for Olympic athletes. I didn't know that. Currently being used. Nuclear power operators, law enforcement officers, Da Vinci robotics surgeons, NASA pilots, NASCAR pit crews, and many others. And there it is. So it's Play Attention, all right? And we see that we have a little, pretty small, pretty thin wire there, and that's going to be to some sort of a connecting interface to the little lady here. I think I don't have that centered quite right. There we go. Yeah, what I just read was down here. I'm not sure that was in the share. Sorry about that. And wow. Wonder what we find if we go to Play Attention. Who knows? Loading. Empowering minds for over 25 years. Oh, sounds good. Better focus, better performance, better brain. NASA-inspired technology, customize executive function training programs. So executive function are our higher level overarching governing priorities that our mind sets. So when they're talking about executive function, its training programs have improved the lives of children and adults around the world. How it works. Would you like to see how it works? I can't resist. But I think I'm going to have to enable the sound. Yeah, let me just enable that sound so we can hear this. Let's see how long this is for. It's only 2 minutes. All right. Please stand by. Let me share that again with sound. Coming right up. And here we go. Oh. Okay. Going to play it right now. And
earlier, we talked about the link, technology that sounds like science fiction, but harnessing electricity in the brain isn't a new development. Reporter Michelle Slavin visited one North Carolina company that's been using it to help people for years. Nice helmet there, by the way, Michelle. Tell us more.
Hey, Brian. Here at Play Attention, they're using Brainwave technology. Now, this is high-tech equipment. At least it was when they started 25 years ago. They've come a long way since then. Today, unlike the Neuralink, which requires invasive surgery, the Brainwave technology straps lightly to your arm. The device acts like a microphone. 3 sensors on the back capture signals between your brain and the nerve endings all over your body, all the way to your fingers and toes.
The brain is actually comprised of billions of cells, neurons. And each one of those cells has to communicate with the cells next to it. And in order to do that, the cells have a little gap between them. It's called a synaptic cleft.
Neurotransmitters sending electrochemical signals bridge this gap to communicate. When millions of these chemical reactions happen at once, it creates an electrical field. This is the Brainwave. With 14 different games, Play Attention uses the armband to monitor and measure brain activity, showing how well a person focuses their attention. I took a whirl at it myself. I want to be an orca.
So I want you to pay attention to the orca as if it were very important. And with your attention, the more attention you pay, the orca will go down. Now, if we distract you while you're doing that, the orca is going to go up.
Using NASA-inspired neurotech, the program helps people with ADHD and other focus issues learn to pay attention.
I integrated a behavior shaping program so that kids can understand how their behaviors actually affect their work and how their attention affects their behaviors.
The brain can essentially be rewired. If communication between 2 neurons is weak, causing attention issues, it can be strengthened with practice.
The more that you do these things, the stronger the connections are for it.
And now they've got sensors for your car. It sits in the headrest, making sure whenever you get behind the wheel, you are giving the road your full attention.
so there you kind of have it on that. Isn't that nifty? Very interesting. The thought is that the armband device that is shown there is something that's going to be able to be made more ubiquitous. I would guess, and I would really expect that there will be more of this that will be able to migrate toward the wireless arena, and more of it that will be able to migrate toward the either micro miniaturized or perhaps implanted device that's smaller and more efficient, probably drawing its power from just some of the background energetic chemical processes that go on in the human body anyway. So that's where I would expect that this would go in the future. It's going to need to be able to communicate outside to some sort of outboard computer equipment or out on the network somehow. But that's the direction that I would see this going in some unknown period of time between 1 and 10 years. I think that that's what we'll be seeing at that point. Those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think we're already there.
So yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So the good thing about this, and they didn't really get into it in that particular promotional piece. That's what I'd kind of call it. That yes, they can monitor those brainwave functions that are associated with certain types of mood or experience or audiovisual input to the brain. But the other piece would be, once that's been accurately tracked and repeatedly tracked and cataloged and categorized, that then they can begin to find out where the person's attention is not focused in a way that would be desired, and modification thereof. That's where that would pretty well seem to be going next.
So you're saying map a brain, understand when attention is directed in a particular area or particular focus, and then be able to stimulate the brain to redirect attention.
Exactly. Because they had up the picture of just concentrating on the orca.
Yeah.
So that's good. But if you really like orcas and you're concentrating on the orca, but you're driving a car, then they're going to be able to know that, and they're going to say, we have a problem. This person's thinking about orcas while they're driving down Route 95 at 75 miles an hour. So we got a problem here. So it would seem to suggest that first they would look at where those higher levels of brain activity were and what they were on. And based on outside monitoring and, if you will, surveillance, they would say this is suboptimal. This person's attention should be on subject A, not subject B. And it would seem like the next step would be to modify that.
For your safety.
Right. Theoretically, for your safety.
Lovingly.
But depending on the accessibility that the technology has to be able to modify our thought processes, and depending on how precise it is, and basically, simply based on who's in the control room deciding what you should be thinking about, it's not necessarily what you might have chosen to want to be thinking about. They're going to perhaps move that in a direction that is for some other purpose. Whatever.
You mean like manipulate an election?
Could be that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that would be one. Well, there's myriad examples, really.
Oh.
Yeah. So technology is just technology. We're not here to incite fear or paranoia. We're just showing you what's out there. And this is real stuff. We can get into the patents and show you how deep it really goes in the capacity and the level of precision and refinement that some of this stuff has reached now. And it's stupendous, and it's also a little bit scary. So let me find.
Yeah, I'll show you real quick.
Yeah.
The one that we just looked at. This body-based monitoring of brain electric activity. Yep. And you listen to a guy named Peter Freer talk about it. He's the one that gave you the rundown on the orca and the focus and the training technology or the training techniques. And he's the inventor, Freer Logic. And this is a patent for body-based monitoring of brain electrical activity. And it comes in a form factor that looks like a watch. It comes in a form factor that straps to your leg, straps to your arm. So when you see these kinds of form factors, you can just translate. These proprietary devices have software in them. And once that software is available for sale, then that software can be delivered to things like a smartwatch or to a cell phone, who in turn have various sensors. And you wear your cell phone on you in your pocket, right? You have a watch on you, on your wrist, headphones on you, in your ears, all on or over your ears. And the various sensors needed are capacitive electrodes, which means they don't need to necessarily make physical contact with you. They can have something like a dielectric in between. It doesn't have to be metal on the skin. Or you need antennas. And I'll show you the evolution of this technology, same company, as we move forward tonight to show you exactly what I'm saying, that in fact, commercial technology exists today to deliver neurological code through your skin, injecting it through your skin into your nervous system, and offer the ability for an exchange of thought, to have synthetic telepathy between you and somebody else. But we're starting here with this body-based monitoring of brain activity.
Just know that any time that you've got a device that's been built and deployed that can read brainwaves, it's always a two-way street. If it can read, it can also attempt to send input signals in other words, write. If it can read, it can write. These are all bidirectional devices, and I'm sure that they are feverishly working on being able to write to the brain as well as read from it. The reading part, I'd say they've got that knocked. All right. So
what you're seeing here is a circuit diagram that basically filters out unwanted signal, unwanted energy, electrical energy, electromagnetic energy, however you want to look at it. And then it has amplifiers right next to the sensors. Once they filter what they want, then they can amplify what's remaining and then read it and be able to understand what's going on with your brain. And that's really what this diagram is showing you here, is that they're able to separate your heart, separate any other electrical activity, most of which is your heart. They can separate the ambient 50 hertz or 60 hertz power grid that's around you. They can separate all of that and look for the remaining electrical signals that can be deciphered as your brainwaves. There's a couple things in here that just literally talks about, I'll just read it for you. This method includes positioning a sensor nearby portions of the skin of the body below the head. So when you think, oh, they're going to read my brain, or somebody's going to monitor my brain or my brain waves, I need to have something on my head. Typically, you think about electrodes on the scalp or something like that. That is absolutely not true. At this point, they can attach something and extract or develop raw signals and filter these raw signals to produce analysis signals, including frequency components that are relevant to your brain activity, while getting rid of unwanted or unnecessary frequency components. And it goes through in detail, more or less breaking down when the brain is working, it has many different brain signatures, has many different brainwave patterns happening at the same time. And what they're getting at here is that they're able to focus on the most relevant, or they can collect them all and develop a complex profile. And so they get into theta signals, alpha signals, beta signals, gamma signals, and these are all very low hertz. You see here 3 hertz, 4 hertz, 8 hertz. This is where your brain lives. These are the frequency components that are in your brain that ultimately drive motion, thought, emotion, experience, tactile sensation, movement, everything. And they're all here in these very low bands, basically from 0 up to like 200 or 300. And most of what you read out there, basically they don't really talk much above 100, which is what you see here. But there are frequency components, especially when you start getting into these harmonics of these frequencies, do things like manipulate the amplitude or the phase, and or frequency will manipulate the amplitude or the phase. And you can start developing some very complex brain signatures where it's many different signals that are all happening at the same time that are in these frequency bands that you see here, 3, 4, 8, 12, 30, 26 to 100, possibly even up to 300. But there are many of them happening simultaneously, and there are many of them happening at different parts of the brain, more or less at the same time, where you think of it like a symphony, where you hear
very good analogy
on the left and then something on the right and something in the middle. And it's a combination of instruments that are all sort of happening at the same time. And you hear this beautiful production. That's what's going on in your brain with electricity.
And in our brains, for us, it happens as just a matter of course. It's completely innate and natural to us. But can you see that perhaps when you look at trying to interface with this extremely complex organ, the brain, and map out not just one or a few, but multiple different signals at different frequencies, there's a lot of data there. And you can see that there might be a real benefit in having if you're trying to monitor all of that or influence it in some way on the outside by way of some sort of computer network system, that it would seem to give a lot of credence to why you would be at a significant advantage if you could increase the speed of the network. And, we're talking about 5G, and we're talking about using lower power, but much broader range of frequencies. In other words, ultra wideband. And so the utility of ultra wideband and 5G is more efficiency and more data throughput back and forth than we've had with previous networks. So if one of the long-term goals is to be able to develop better interfacing and interactivity from the outside to the inside of your brain, then industry is positioned in just the right area with all of their development with 5G and ultra wideband. They work. It's almost, you need it. You need more power in that network to be able to start interacting at this level.
Yeah, they need more bandwidth.
Yeah.
So the whole wideband thing is, there's a lot going on there. What we're going to show you most of the show tonight is stuff that's going to be wearable technology, stuff that's nearby your body.
You're going to be seeing it soon at Best Buy, everybody.
Yeah. The rabbit hole goes much deeper than that. When you start looking at what electromagnetics can do, they can create resonant harmonics, they can create thermal effects, they can create acoustic effects, which then modulate the brain the very same way that electrical stimulation modulates the brain. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces to explain that, but in a nutshell, that's really what can be done with wireless energy. Your body is a giant transducer. It's an antenna, but it's also a transducer, which means that when energy is applied to the body, it changes. It can change into mechanical energy. It can change into heat. It can change into acoustics. And it can, through resonance, generate electric and magnetic fields from the cells that naturally produce those types of things. Case in point would be like your brain or the nervous system, the neurons. They're electrochemical. So when they get excited, they generate electric fields. There is conversely a magnetic field that is generated. They are directly related. An electric field and a magnetic field are directly related. So you can stimulate the body and drive electrical signaling through the nervous system and the brain. And there are many ways to stimulate the body. And when we look at wideband, probably more than one show, there's many different things that wideband can do. And first and foremost, I think, Indy, we should look at wideband and what it can do with imaging. It's going to show, and we might get there tonight, it's going to show a great deal of the amount of resolution that's possible. It's like ultra wideband can basically make like a 4K video of your guts, of your organs, of your baby inside, of your mammogram. It creates high resolution, high definition imaging. It's phenomenal. I gotta stop for a second, Indy. I'll be right back.
Yep, and that's owing to a couple of things. Number one, the range with ultra wideband, by definition, ultra wideband it has the capability to, by way of software control, go from one very low frequency up to another very high frequency. And what that means is that based on the suitability of that particular range of frequency, that it lends itself to being able to image within a certain type of tissue. So some types of tissues they're going to be able to image them better with high frequencies. Other types of tissue may be lower frequencies. So there's your ultra wideband portion there, which gives you the benefit of that. And then when you consider that with proximity, with devices that are all sorts of wearables, then the amount of energy needed is lower. So we've got a wide frequency range from which to choose for whatever the target area to get the desired interfacing action to take place is. And then we're doing it relatively proximal by way of either your smartphone or your wristband, your wrist-worn device, or the ankle-worn device, or and we didn't show it yet, but even by way of the headrest in your car with embedded antennas in that. So with that proximity, we have low power. And with the new speed of the networks, we have much higher throughput, and there's a lot more data to be able to gather and perform that interaction with. And then with the wideband aspect of it, we have the ability to throttle either the frequency up or down based on what type of tissue or what type of what the target tissue is, I guess is one way to say it. So all those pieces they come together to be a synergy of all these technologies for one purpose. And that purpose is to be able to successfully interface with the brain and read it, and most likely to write to it. And I think you might be back now.
Yeah. Do you want to show the Freer Logic page that's got the car seat, and then there's a video I think embedded, or it's in another link. It's a good video.
Let's find. I'll put it up, and then we'll scan through. I'm sure they've got the video there someplace. Let's get that up. All right. And when I share the sound, which I will be doing for this, I have to be careful not to talk too much, because for some reason my voice echoes back at me and causes me a little confusion. All right. So first of all, this is the main page from Freer Logic, all right? And what we're seeing right here is a person driving a car, and we're seeing imaged some of the energy centers, some of the energetic processes going on in the brain. Right behind this person is a headrest. And now, let's just take a look here. Freer Logic's award-winning neurobiomonitor headrest provides real-time brain data without contact to the vehicle's driver. The current range is 6 to 10 inches from the head, quite adequate. And it's in development via automotive OEMs and tier 1 suppliers, which, for the purpose that they're stating here, is to determine fatigue, drowsiness, cognitive load, distraction, emotion, stress, and relaxation. Other use cases include embedding the neurobiomonitor in the office chairs or gambling casinos. Wow. In office chairs and casino chairs to determine interest and attention of an audience. Bedding and luxury recliner OEM have placed it in their furniture or mattresses to monitor sleep or to relax the user to put them to sleep. So right there, that last phrase does pretty well give away the idea that there is the two-way communication. One is monitoring, but secondly is to feed input signals back into the brain to relax the user to put them to sleep for one purpose anyway. So we got a guy with that's a video I'm going to play here. Let me just get this thing size right. Then after that, I will just let you watch it. It's a minute long. All right, here we go.
Freer Logic has made this simple headrest into a mighty tool that can monitor a driver's brain. A powerful tool that emits nothing but passively listens to the brain's activity. It can detect drowsiness, cognitive load, and distraction, then alert the driver to wake up.
Drowsiness detected. Use caution.
Become more aware.
Dangerous state detected.
Or reduce distractions.
Focus to drive safely.
Since it can also detect driver emotion,
let's play some calming music.
It can augment the infotainment system. It even has the
Call
potential
from
to allow the
Dave.
driver to accept or reject incoming
Call
calls
from
or texts
voicemail.
without hands ever leaving the wheel or eyes leaving the road. Inside the headrest is a specialized sensor array and electronics that greatly amplify brain activity to indicate the driver's state. Passive monitoring can even solve many problems inherent in automated driving, including determining driver engagement. To order your test kit or to view a demonstration, call Freer Logic at 828-676-2239.
Yep, there I was talking and I was muted. Okay, so there's really, you got to read between the lines just a little bit and know that a whole lot. I mean, once the portal and the method and the apparatus for that interaction is created, built, and deployed, now what we have to become concerned about is what purposes it might be used for. I would think that if the network were to malfunction, and if somehow that headrest that was monitoring the driver's cognitive state somehow made an error, and occasionally errors occur, and that if it sent wrong signals to the driver's brain by way of that EEG interface, it could cause something dangerous to happen. It could cause the driver to maybe veer in a wrong direction, maybe hit a tree or something. So you don't know. Oh, there's more. TMC, there's more. We have some thoracic sensors as well embedded in the lower part of the seat.
Yeah, so this ties back into the body-based monitoring. So going through the evolution of this one inventor, this one company's technology, what we're seeing here is something that was placed on the skin that's extracting information signals out of the skin to something that can be nearby the head and or something that can be nearby the body to extract information out of the body that is relevant to your brain, your thoughts, your attention, etc., etc. And yeah, to your point, these things can be embedded just about anywhere. Here's one in the visor, so it's not just the rear portion of the body. It can be in front of the head, and the visor is quite a distance away from your head, especially when you compare the distance from your headrest to your head versus the visor to your head. There's quite a bit of distance there. And I have notes on this patent as well, that here's one that's embedded in the roof of a car or in a wall or a door jamb or a building or anything, right? So the demo was with the car. The reality is this stuff can be embedded anywhere people are and perform this function. And here's one where they get your brainwave straight out of your ass. It's just, you don't need to have your head up your ass anymore. This thing will pull it out for you without having your head up your ass. For those of you that can't see on a small device, this is what I'm referring to here. And these are just the various iterations. And what you see here is sampling of this individual, which is then provided to somebody else wirelessly by means of a mobile device or something like that. So this is the collection and sharing of that information. Is what they're getting at here in a generic diagram. Here's what you saw in that headrest. They're coils. So they're just coil antennas. Coil antennas exist in every mobile device today. So the idea behind all this is understanding that it's possible and understanding that once it's viable, the software is the value. It is the software. How to interpret the signals, that's the value. Because this hardware is basically available everywhere today. And what it's showing you is it's basically able to extract simple components. At this point it's saying that it understands a nod or a yes or a no, and it also, which means it tracks movement as well as just pulling the electrical signals out of your brain. And these are basically yes and no's, raw signals that get interpreted. And so I'm going to take you to the notes real quick. There's a couple things here that are highlighted. So it says that this thing is able to monitor brain waves with no contact sensors placed nearby portions of the head to develop raw signals. They're filtered and they include frequency components that are relevant to brain activity, and they get rid of the unwanted frequencies. And basic, right? Antennas, and you've got amplifiers, and then you've got something that's able to filter out the heart, get rid of the heartbeat, electrical activity, your ECG, your EKG, and just leave the brainwaves. They can do all this with cheap modern electronics. And so there is a section here. It says, for example, the non-contact sensors may be used at a distance of 6 or more inches away from the body and obtain EEG signals through various materials such as hair, clothing, upholstery, and the like. So it can sense it through obstructions. It doesn't have to be a clear line of sight. Additionally, the apparatus and method for monitoring brainwaves described by this disclosure do not require signal injection into the subject. What that means is they do not require transmitting energy into your body to extract your brainwaves. They can passively extract your brainwaves. Further, the apparatus and methods for monitoring brainwaves described by this disclosure can be used anywhere on the body to acquire EEG signals in a manner similar to the famed tricorder from the Star Trek television series.
Yep.
And it says here that this technology, can be incorporated into anything that comes into proximity with a person to be monitored, such as a headrest of a seat. The apparatus is able to perform no contact monitoring of an individual that is a distance away from the apparatus, for example, 10 inches. So they have 6 inches or greater than 6 inches, and then now they have an approximation of 10 inches away, being able to remotely extract your brainwaves without anything making contact with your body. So it also says it can obtain the EEG signals from the body below the head without contact from the head or the body, 10 inches or more away from the individual. So more than 6 inches, a quotation of 10 inches, and now another section in this patent, paragraph 56 in the patent, says 10 inches or more away from an individual, they can extract your brainwaves out of your brain, pointed at your head, or out of your body, pointed at your body. The non-body contact directional EEG device described in this disclosure does not require close proximity, does not require it to be nearby, or does not require contact to be made with the head or the body to acquire your brainwave signals. The significantly different technique requires the monitoring of all available field energy emanating from the brain in real time. So it's able to extract all of the energy that is being emitted from the brain and or your body in real time. And they make a comparison here. Compared to the conventional systems, this can be considered as different as oil drilling is to gold mining. In other words, instead of attaching a sensor to gain localized information from the brain, this system can continually, ongoing, in real time, pull all available electrical field data of brain information for extensive processing and parse the data into usable electroencephalography data, EEG data.
So a couple things that come to mind there is that's what the mining is these devices are out there listening, and they are seeing and hearing all that EEG data. And I wonder what that proximity limit is. I'm going to say that it's probably a few feet or inside of a room, something like that. It's probably within the range of the sensitivity of these devices now to be in that range. So
it's more. They were able to do this.
But it's going to be confusing for the equipment because it's going to be picking up EEG signals from a number of people. So it's going to need to be able to, need to be able to directionally focus on one source of brain waves and be able to track them as they move from one part to a room. And in other words, stay locked on one.
Or it'll reference a database.
Yep. And it'll have a profile of what is likely the general brainwave patterns of one individual. Don't forget, this starts to be built into a database. Well, you said it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this patent was patented or filed in 98, and it was patented in 2000. And this patent talks about being able to communicate by way of monitored brain activity. The brain activity of an individual is monitored and transmitted to a remote location, for example, by satellite. At the remote location, the monitored brain activity is compared with pre-recorded, normalized brain activity curves, waveforms, or patterns to determine if a match or a substantial match is found. If a match is found, the computer at the remote location determines the individual was attempting to communicate a word, phrase, thought, or whatever corresponding to the matched stored signal. So
exactly,
your brain is like a fingerprint. When you say the word yes, or you think the word yes versus no, when that brainwave signal is measured, it's different than when I think or say yes or no. And it's different than somebody else saying yes or no. Every individual's brainwave profile, when doing the same thing, saying the same thing, thinking the same thing, experiencing whatever that is, the same thing, the brain signature is unique to each individual. And that is why that real-time signal acquisition is so valuable. Because if there's enough data that can be gathered about an individual brain, it won't matter where that brain is. It can be found, and it can be established through biometric verification with a certain level of accuracy that it is in fact that individual, and that they are in fact having these thoughts, feelings, emotions, experiences, sensations, whatever.
Yep. Your brain will be transmitting your EEG in Poughkeepsie, New York, and your brain's going to then go to Boston, Massachusetts. And very much like the police use facial recognition databases, and it goes through, it blasts through 1,000 faces, a second till it finds a match. That's exactly what will be done with this. And then finally, it'll go through the files and go through all of the data in the database, and it'll say, oh, we have a lock. We know that this brain fingerprint, this EEG fingerprint, is now not in Poughkeepsie. It's shown up in Boston, Mass. So now they've got the one, they've got the person, they've got that fingerprint, and now they can begin adding to the central database file on whatever the behavior of that person's brainwaves are at that time in that environment.
So I want you to note the date here. It's 1974.
Oh my gosh.
1974. This is one of the most commonly searched, or if you search for remote brainwave monitoring or something in that field, right? Lots of people out there saying this can be done. And this is a go-to patent.
That's got to sink in. We got to just stop and just let that sink in. We know from our lowly consumer vantage point how far and how fast technology has advanced and miniaturized and become more powerful between 1970 something and now. Can you even begin to imagine if these concepts were on the drawing board and if they had working prototypes then, or at least the thought of what they were going to build, exactly what that could be now? It's there.
Yeah, well, this is
TMC. I think
50 years ago, there. Man. Well, 40 years ago. 80, 90, 2000, 1, 2. Yeah. We'll just call it 40. And what this patent literally talks about, sending more than one electromagnetic signal into the brain. This is the same patent. And continuously monitoring the brain back in 1974, can understand seizures, sleepiness, dreaming, all can be detected. Bodily functions such as your pulse, heartbeat, the regularity of those things, and other physiological functions can also be monitored, right? Hallucinations can be detected. Interesting. Well, hallucinations can be induced with this very same patent, the very same technology. I'll show you in a minute. Medical diagnosis of patients inaccessible to physicians from remote locations. So remote medical diagnosis can be performed with this patent back in 1974. So a profile
it really blows
of the entire
your mind,
brain.
Doesn't it?
What's that?
It really blows your mind when you consider now we're building out a really high density, high speed communications network all over the place. And this is like, it's just a matter of just building it out.
Yeah. Well, one of the most common frequencies that are used to do this is 2.4 gigahertz.
Yep. Low microwaves.
Yeah. Well, what do we know that's 2.4 gigahertz? How long has that been around in every house?
Oh, good 10 or so years now. Your router?
Probably more than that.
Yep. Your
Wi-Fi was out.
System.
Wi-Fi was out. What, about 20 years ago is when it started coming out?
Yep.
And it became standardized shortly thereafter. But that's the basic Wi-Fi signal. And Bluetooth
I think some of the first Wi-Fi, which didn't last very long, was around 900 megahertz. Yeah, and that was also some of the first cordless phones that you'd use in your house. And it quickly went to 2.4.
Mm-hmm. 915 megahertz. If you were to go buy a set of wireless cordless home phones to plug into your phone line, they make conversion kits now where you go and you set your cell phone in a cradle, and then your home phones that are placed throughout the house, they ring when your cell phone rings. So there's a handoff there, a conversion where your mobile service basically turns into your home phone when you're at home. But those are 915 megahertz, which is another commonly used frequency for thermally exciting the brain or being able to interact with tissue. And we'll get into thermoacoustics, electroacoustics, and photoacoustics at some point. There's medical applications for that, but there's a lot more. There's a lot more to this than what we're showing you tonight.
On other shows, we've talked about the using two frequencies, and it's not just limited to two, but using multiple frequencies. Let's say we were going with your, what did you say it was, 960 megahertz TMC?
915.
915.
Yeah, 915.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just talk about some typical brainwave frequencies. Anywhere between 5 and 40 cycles per second. If one were to set up two frequencies coming out of a device like that, one of them at 915 megahertz and the other one at 919 megahertz, then the difference between those two frequencies would be 4 hertz, 4 cycles per second. So if you're sending those two out at the same time, then a tissue that is in the range of the difference between those two frequencies, which is 4 cycles per second, would begin to entrain, or could be used if it was focused properly, could be used to entrain the brain waves at that frequency, depending on the strength of it and depending on whether it was targeted right. So the using multiple, concurrent detection of absolute distance and relative movement for sensing action.
This is a Google Soli type of a radar patent, and it talks about generating a radar field that can send out more than one radar tone simultaneously to create a higher resolution image. And I'm bringing this up and showing this is because it's here now. This can be done with the Wi-Fi antenna.
Easily.
What I'm showing here, right, this particular patent, if you want to dig into it, is literally a consumer grade version of a Boeing patent that discusses transmitting multiple frequencies out of a single transmitter for radar-like applications for satellites or for the military. And this is just a commercial grade version of the same exact thing that's done in the comfort of your own home, so you don't have to get up and change the volume on your TV. It can be done with hand gestures. And it's the same exact technology. It's radar technology. So when you think about these special access programs and sending off of our sensitive classified military tech, when you hear about the missile tech being passed off to China or whatever, right? This is kind of what it is. And what it's been done over the last 15, 20 years is it's been turned into usable software that they have now found consumer uses for, or at least packaged it in a way that consumers will use it. And they have refined the software, manufactured hardware devices in China that now enable military-grade technology to be used for basic consumer applications. You get 10 to 20% of the functionality, yet the entire suite of what can be done with these technologies are now available through that device that you have purchased that you think is really, really cool, because now you can use gesture recognition to change the channel on your TV, or gesture recognition to turn on and turn off your alarm, or to flip the radio station channel, or to change the temperature on your thermostat. It's the same exact stuff. So I didn't mean to take you off your tangent here, but
no, it's good.
Look this up. If you guys are at all interested, this is a great one to start with, because it literally talks about a simple small number of antennas generating complex radar fields to render high definition images, sub-millimeter images of you, so that it can understand your intent. And it doesn't stop in your living room. This will go to your bathroom. This will go to your bedroom. This will go to your children's room. And it's basically radar that's transmitted out, and based on how the waves interact in the environment, the antennas pick up the return signals, and they can render and understand images. This stuff goes through solid material and can still be understood. You can still perform quote unquote gesture recognition through something like a wall or a chair. They just change the frequencies. And there are other Google patents in the same general family that talk about scaling the frequencies. We want to talk about ultra wideband, where they can run from like a gigahertz up to 300 gigahertz. So any material obstructions that are in the way, they just pick another frequency that'll pass through it.
That's right.
And what it's showing you here is the level of resolution that can be done. If they can understand your finger brushing across your other finger to turn up or turn down the volume, they know whatever you're doing. They know how many times you wipe your ass. They know how many times you are intimate. They know how many times, fill in the blank. They know how many times, they know everything about you. The Fourth Amendment is a laughingstock at this point.
Privacy, really.
It's gone.
It is gone for sure. And we have willingly, not complicitly, but willingly and unknowingly invited and brought this into our lives by way of the convenience of all sorts of modern devices. And when you talk about this suite of technologies, well, let's say that we just called it, just to oversimplify it, just say that we called it radar or radio wave technology. There are a few aspects of it. One is the ultra wideband nature of it. Two is that when you have multiple frequencies, you can use those to basically synthesize a different frequency. By using two frequencies, then out in the field, you can use those to synthesize a different frequency energy field. And so you're doing it indirectly, but you're creating, like what I was saying before, with 915 megahertz and 919, then out in the environment, your room, your kitchen, it can create a 4 hertz energy field. So that's one thing. The interaction between frequencies, the fact that these new devices are ultra wideband, which means under software control, they can range from, I think you said 1 gigahertz up to 300. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and that's just an example
like
of one company's technology.
Right. And then lastly, the last piece of, well, there's probably more, but the other piece I wanted to hit on just to reinforce it a little bit again is when you've got this environment and you're bringing these devices in there and you're able to create these different energy fields and you're able now to monitor multiple EEG patterns in a space, in an environment, now it becomes highly beneficial to have a faster, more efficient network, hence 5G, ultra wideband, up into the gigahertz, well up into the gigahertz range. And so again, just making that case one more time of all these different aspects of the suite. Devices will be literally all over the place. They'll be in the seat of your car, in the headrest, on your wrist. They'll be in your smartphone that's in your pocket. They'll be also able to be generated and interpreted coming out of and going back into your Wi-Fi router and any other Wi-Fi enabled device in your home or your environment. So, yeah, kind of intense.
Yeah, well, it gets creepier. I don't know if you want to. What time?
We got to go there. Oh yeah, we're on it. We're on a roll. Yeah.
Okay, so we got the last one of this patent family that I'll show you. And if this doesn't concern you, I don't really know if it even matters. I mean, if it really even matters to you. This, to me, is ridiculously concerning. The final patent that I found from these people is, wow, I'm going a long way to get here. So free logic, right?
Yep.
Here's their patent they filed, looks like 2016, and worldwide application in 2017, and it was published, it looks like, in June of 2020.
Yep.
Was granted, I should say. Publication was back in 2018, right here. And this was for their, I guess, provisional patent or whatever.
Application granted June 2020 of this year.
Yeah. Okay. So this one's a little freaky, and this basically is the same kind of thing, right? Only it's in a watch. And I think you've got some pictures from Freer's website that shows something similar, but it's not exactly the same thing. I've got it linked through this website here. But what this is this is somebody wearing a watch that has electrodes in it, but it's reading the other guy's brain.
I can just put it up for a second if you want. Just show people the picture, and then we'll go right back to you.
Is it here? Check this out. I think
this is it. So, for your logic, this is what they're calling the Bi-directional watch. And so this is something that they're deploying, introducing the Bi-directional wristband. Latest development from Freer Logic. Engineering our mind-reading technology. We are engineering our mind-reading technology to fit into a small wristband about the size of a watch. Headsets have existed for years, but no one wants to wear them. They're awkward, they're invasive, they're silly looking, and they don't maintain your privacy. Goodness gracious. The Bi-directional wristband quells all of that. It's discreet, yet you will be able to control apps by mind alone. Imagine. Obtain your biometrics without anyone knowing, all from your wrist. Expect to see it out late this year. And there you go. There's a picture of it, and we'll go right back to you. Pull my share down. It's all yours.
Oh, man, it just disappeared. Hang on.
Oh,
It's okay.
You've got it there somewhere.
Yeah. So the patent for this watch, it's a dual EEG no contact monitor with a personal brainwave monitor for simultaneous concurrent brainwave monitoring and communication. And so what you see here is an exaggerated, you don't have to point your wrist. You don't have to point at somebody like you're a wizard. You're not Gandalf. This thing can steer the radar field with this thing just at your side, nonchalantly, hand at your side. But it's showing you this way so that it's very illustrative in the picture. What you have here is a watch that has electrodes on it, which make contact with the wearer, the person wearing the watch, makes contact with their skin, and it sends electrical impulses through the skin into the nerves and modulates the peripheral nervous system to provide neural code to the brain that the brain then interprets as communication, thoughts, images, words, you name it. And we'll get into some of the specific language in a minute. It is taking the thoughts from the other individual who's not wearing a watch. You can see these little lines here like they're waves. That is being done with this coil antenna, electromagnetic sensor coil. So what we saw in the headrest can be miniaturized and put into a watch, and then through transcranial magnetic stimulation, extract or insert neurologic code into the brain for mind reading / synthetic telepathy type communication. That is what this is showing you. It gets better.
So let's say that you use your thoughts to direct your interface device to load a certain app. Don't you think it would be quite reasonable to expect that once that app loads, that it's going to send a readback to your brain and say, yes, app loaded, ready to go? So I'm just driving the nail home on it. It's a two-way bi-directional communication pathway.
Yeah, unless it's some visual stimulus, like the screen turns on and
you can see
then
it.
You think scroll or play, and then you see a change on the screen. That's how I think it's going to be rolled out, because
it'll keep the other part invisible.
Yeah, I think this will be rolled out in a progression. People are not going to jump both feet first into this idea of
getting thoughts put into their minds.
Yeah. Even though it's been patented from a guy who developed technology used by NASA.
Yep. Well, the last phrase on that wristband watch that we just showed actually said it. I mean, they're basically telling you right straight out. Yep, there it is.
So he's been working with the Silicon Valley now. This guy has been working with the Silicon Valley for 2 or 3 years. And you could see here, here's a link for CES 2017. So we're almost in 2021, right?
Okay.
So CES, Consumer Electronics Show 2017, no contact neurobio monitor headrest will be featured in the CES booth at the convention center. And they'll be able to use the drive stimulator. And here's Freer Logic 2018 Denso booth, Las Vegas 2018. Developing technologies for safer, more comfortable, convenient mobility. Automated drive technologies.
The empathic cockpit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what phrases I'm looking for, though, is as you go through that paragraph, I'm looking for any place where they kind of just give a little bit of connotation that there's that bidirectional communication, because we know it's there.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that if we read enough, we'll find that they actually slip a little bit once in a while in the press
I'll show you.
release.
It's right here in this patent.
Oh, it's in the patent. Oh, it's in the patent. But I'm talking about they'll eventually let it slip by accident in the press releases too.
Yeah. And they did with the watch, did they not? I think I heard you say that.
Yep.
The body wave quells all of that. It's discrete. You'll be able to control apps by mind alone, obtain your biometrics without anyone knowing, all from your wrist.
Right there. That last phrase, obtain your biometrics.
Yeah.
Well, how would you obtain your biometrics unless you're getting a readback from the device back to your brain?
Yeah, they'll argue through legalese that's not what we meant. It's no different than Apple or Samsung or Fitbit taking your biometrics and letting you know what your stress levels are and how well you're sleeping and all of that.
Right.
So I wish I could find. There's a press release that literally says this. These people are working in the Silicon Valley. Silicon Review, Peter Freer. Silicon Review. It's an excerpt. Blah, blah, blah. This doesn't matter. Bottom line is this guy's been working with the Silicon Valley for a number of years now. And I'm going to show you what this talks about here. So this watch can detect your brainwaves or someone else's brainwaves nearby. And
go back to that transceiver. There was another paragraph just a little bit below that. Additional aspects that include a transceiver that's configured to transmit the state of second person to another device and receive signal corresponding to a state of another person from the other device.
Right.
So
what that's this. That's what that looks like is that's what this is.
Oh, yeah, you were okay.
So it's able to somebody who's not wearing this thing, you can extract their biometric information and have it delivered directly to your brain. It can tell you what's going on with this person by injecting neural code into your body and having that go to your brain. And it literally says that here in this patent. It says here that the receiver device can use digital signal processing to re-encode the digitized information as a neural message that is injected into the person's peripheral nervous system by, for example, meaning not exclusive, more than one way or two ways to do this, can be injected into the peripheral nervous system by methods of magnetically stimulating, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation of the visual areas in the occipital cortex, indirectly modulating neural activity through rapidly changing magnetic fields. So that is that coil, is this coil right here. This coil that is transmitting rapidly changing electromagnetic fields to modulate your brain and excite and stimulate your visual cortex to deliver intelligible information into your brain without a camera, without a microphone, without a monitor. This is done with an antenna, with an electromagnetic antenna. Or the other option they give here is electrically, an array of sensors on or under the skin, or haptically by stimulating the nerves that induce neural activity that can interpret the signals as hello. These methods can also be used in combination as neurostimulation methods to stimulate the brain to exchange information between brains directly in neural code. So to have a conversation or a synthetic emotional experience with somebody else with this technology.
Now just go back up to I don't know if the diagram's on that page. I don't want you to screw up your tabs. Yeah, right there. Imagine if, as you look at this diagram and substitute the person on the right for a remote computer system, perhaps in the cloud, perhaps, a series of networked computers that have all sorts of data about you and about a lot of other things. Imagine that instead of it being the person on the right side, that it was a computer out there or a big, powerful computer system. Now, how would you feel if instead of seeing thoughts go up your arm on the left-hand side, coming from another person, theoretically for a shared experience or, person-to-person telepathy. But what if you were getting your telepathy from a cold machine or from a system or from a network instead of from another human being. I don't know if you'd feel quite as warm about what you saw on the diagram as you do right now.
Would be how it's done. That watch,
of course, because it's got to go through the. It has to.
Precisely. That watch is not going to have enough memory on it to store your profile, whoever else you may be communicating with, their profiles. It's going to go through a cloud computer translator.
It says internet right there.
Yeah.
Yep. Right there. Yep. So take that right-handed person out of the picture, and now it's just you and the internet, and everything that we read about being able to synthesize neural signals and send them, up your arm and into your brain is coming from only the internet, based on whatever it is designed and whatever it is choosing to do to cause an interactive change with you. Take the other person out. Now what's going on?
The real issue here is whether or not this is going to be an open platform or if it's going to be a censored platform. So we can take the current issues undergoing censorship with Twitter, Facebook, and others, YouTube, et cetera, and apply it to this technology. And then the question becomes simply, are you having a unique, original, unadulterated experience communicating with someone or something else? Or are those signals being censored, modified, and repackaged? And
in the middle, internet, repackaged, changed to make you think something is coming from the other person, but it isn't. Right. It's been changed. So you're both now seeing a virtualization of what you thought was a true and genuine.
I'll use the words from Tim Apple. What you will be getting is a curated platform, some curated content. What they think it is that you need to have put into your brain. Curated. That is censorship. This device, mind control.
This device is being rolled out this year. Now, we don't go and we don't go and try and make people all paranoid and everything. But if you consider that this technology and the work on this is decades old, first of all, and now you're seeing a consumer level device rolling out this year. When you look around in the world around you, and you look at whether the people that you're interacting with are making complete sense, if it seems erratic or different from what you might expect, because people, we all know each other, we have a kind of an internal understanding of what another person is going to do. And when you see something different happening, either in an individual or in a group of individuals, might you just think, just for a second, and this is not to induce paranoia or fear, but might you think for just a second that there might have been some sort of an altering effect that they were unaware of that may have modified their thought process or their reaction in any given situation? Because what we're showing you here is that all of this stuff is there. It's out there now, and it is literally in our pockets. It's in our homes. It's in our Wi-Fi routers, and you're going to be able to wear it on your wrist supposedly by the end of the year. And it's just a matter of increasing the density of that whole system. In other words, 5G, ultra wideband, build out that whole network in order to be able to do more of it faster with more people. It's already there. Now it's just scaling it up. Well, when this is scaled up to its maximum limit, TMC, can you imagine? We might not even be able to know that what we think we know is not what we meant to know.
We won't know that it's not real at that point.
That's correct. Correct. So that to me, it really makes me a little bit uneasy.
Yeah. Especially because this coil right here is now in just about every single device that's out there.
Correct.
And if you want to know what I'm talking about, very simply,
your phone's got probably 4 of them in it.
very simply, one common example is the wireless
Charging station.
charging. Here's your coil. And this looks really, really similar, doesn't it?
Right.
To what was in that headrest. Really, really similar. Let me see if no contact, body and brain. Yeah, this is the one where it kind of gives a breakdown.
There you go. There you go.
So there's that. And there's this.
So now that looks like a coil, right? And it is a coil.
Yeah, it's a planar coil.
Indeed.
Yeah.
There's another way to look at this coil, and it has to do with it being able to have multi-frequency capabilities.
And
if you visualize that coil, instead of having 2 wires coming off of it, but maybe 3 or 4 at different points in the coil, that's going to now begin to afford you a few different frequency ranges. And they can either be used individually or in combination to get more frequency combinations.
So when you get into the small form factor like a watch or even a cell phone, they will have like this wire right here. You can see it's running underneath.
Yep.
For example, they could have contact points every other coil wrap, every third coil wrap, every fourth whatever.
Right.
And they will strand. They will strand out these connections so they can energize certain numbers of wraps of coils so they can generate independent frequencies, tune independent frequencies based on the amount of wire that's energized. And they can pulse this stuff in the nanosecond time scale. And I mentioned the phones and the watches earlier on because these antennas do many things. They can be the antenna for the cell connection. They can be the antenna for the Bluetooth connection. They can provide the wireless charging capability. They can also drive your speaker. These can also drive the piezoelectric ceramic speaker. And these can also provide power to other devices. The newer phones coming out will be able to charge your headbuds, the earbuds and whatnot, or your watch from the battery in your phone. So these coils are ridiculously
inexpensive to make and very, very flexible, very adaptable.
Yeah, they're very powerful little things.
There's another level that you can go to. And what looks like a piece of wire, a straight piece of wire, is something that can be, you're looking at a coil right there. Let's call that the primary coil. Now, if one were to zero in microscopically on the wire, and this is done sometimes, it's not impossible to take what looks like the straight piece of wire and coil it up. And now that's called secondary coiling. Okay. And now you can have a primary and a secondary coil that at the macroscopic level just looks like a piece of wire. But when you zero in microscopically, you find that it is a coiled coil, if you know what I mean. So primary and secondary coiling. Now, this affords an entire different range of frequencies, and combining that with tapping off of, let's say, after just a couple of turns of that, you might find a picture of primary and secondary coiling if you look long enough. I hope I explained it.
Yeah, there's an example of it right here.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. So anyway, the amount of flexibility in designing these antenna coils is really pretty good, and it's not expensive to make these things. They don't require a lot of metal, copper, or whatever metal is being used. And that this is one of the things that helps them to accomplish the ultra wideband tunability of these antennas. And these antennas are all over the place. And when you get the latest and greatest smart device, whatever it might be, you can be certain that it's going to have the most advanced, I think, microscopic image of fabricated something. What was the one up? You might find something else. I think people get the idea of it. Anyway, the next device that you get is going to have the most advanced type of antenna in it, which will have the most tuning range, if you will.
Yeah,
and
so
then from there, it's just a matter of the software that you use to drive it, just telling it what frequencies to receive or transmit. And that's just code.
This is
just
done in
one
software updates. They can do this with other types
shapes
of antennas too.
Yep. Right.
This is another antenna.
And the ones in that middle diagram that you look at right there, that where you're seeing it looks like an open coil. Well, that still works. And it's because when we're talking about frequencies of electromagnetic radiation, they will find the size of the coil that resonates with them. And that's what it will be, quote unquote, tuned to. And so when you have different tapping points on that coil, you can change the tuning any of a number of different ways. So
I want to show you something here.
To them, this is simple. To the engineers that build this stuff, this is antennas 101. This is not even hard to do. I'm watching.
Yeah, I want to show you something here. So take a look at these.
Oh no! Wow.
See that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a look at these.
Yeah.
And then we'll go back here and you can look at these.
Gosh, you know what I'm thinking right now?
And then you can go back and look at these. Here's a better,
What if that stuff on the ground at that island, whose name shall not be mentioned at this moment, was metallic? What if that was metallic paint that was used?
It's not. I don't think it is. I think that these are universal geometries. There's a reason why electromagnetics works the way they do with these shapes. There's a reason why. I think that it has to do with the universal geometries. And so there's more to it than just this guy going, oh, these antennas can do all this cool shit. I'm going to put them on my concrete pad outside my little rape temple. No, I think these are universal type geometries. But what was really shocking to me is.
Hold on to what's really shocking to you for just 1 second. Lock those thoughts in your mind. Kitty out in the chat says, I don't want this. And you know what? You just might be safer not to have the implementation of this all around you than to have it be so permeated in your world that you can't even escape it. You really just might be better off not having it. Maybe. I won't make that judgment. That's your call. It's your world too, not just mine. And then another question that was brought up, off topic, but it was about med beds. Do med beds exist? And we did a little bit of research on that, and we're going to do more because there are some claims that med beds do exist and that they do use interactive electromagnetic waves in, when you're reclined on that med bed. We're not ready to bring it yet, Kitty, but that was a good thought to bring up. And we're waiting to get some second and third source corroboration of some things that we already read a few days ago. And I'm losing my voice. Excuse me. But yeah, so thank you for being part of the discussion. Anyway, back to you.
Do you want to migrate to ultra wideband imaging a little bit? We've got.
Let me just put up one little thing here. It's just a real quick read. It's actually the intro to, see, where's my Zoom thing here? Yeah, okay, here it is. And we're just trying to give a little bit of there's a lot of complex topics here, and it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And we work to simplify it, both for your sake and our sakes too, because it's a lot. Anyway, this is just a quick little overview, and then we're going to go where you want to go. So this is from, what was this from? Ultra wideband radar in medicine. All right. So ultra-wideband radar is something like a mix of conventional radar and spread spectrum radio. All right, so spread spectrum radio, this is where the ultra-wideband aspects comes in. What renders ultra-wideband very interesting is the possibility to probe the motion of internal organs. And of course, we've gone well beyond that already. Gone well beyond that. There's a further exploitation of ultra-wideband, which is more at the EEG level, which we've kind of been covering tonight. Anyway, they go on with remote, non-contact approach, which is unique at the present time. And some of the benefits of this whole ultra-wideband thing that we've been talking about is the very low cost, the high miniaturization capability, and the environmental friendliness, and the very low electromagnetic energy necessary in order to accomplish the desired effect. And this was just the intro to one of the patents. And I think further down, they also get into just pulsing the radar. A very simple model of ultra-wideband radar pulse echo interaction. And they go into some stuff. So this is just a little bit of an overview about ultra-wideband. That's all I had on that. Let's go back to you.
I don't know where we want to go. We can keep going down this path of free logic, I guess. I mean, we'll
go back to their web pages here. Yeah, we only have a few minutes left on tonight, and the benefit is for you to see what's out there and see it's already been out there at the military level. It's already been out there in the research labs and at the institutional level. It is coming to a consumer electronics store near you soon. And our job here, I think, is probably to let you know that this is going to be in your devices and you should know it. And as for how we learn what might be happening with it and how we perhaps create countermeasures for it or protect ourselves from it or be aware of it, that's something as of yet we have not figured out. But it would be highly wise for us to start thinking in that direction. So I already had covered, let's see here. Yeah, I'm looking for where else we can go. Body wave, how it works. Yeah, I got a few things I haven't reviewed, so I'm not going to put them up. I'm scanning through what I have here. I don't know. Let's speculate for a few minutes, if you want.
Yeah. About what?
I guess what I'm seeing, I'm going to put this just up just as an illustration. It's not, we've already covered it, but just as an illustration, which is this. When you see a picture of a person, a human brain, and you see she's equipped with this arm-worn interface device, then you just really got to stop and think about whether it makes sense to you. The mind is very trainable. And if we're talking about using technology and computers to train the mind, it's going to be able to do it very efficiently and very quickly. But we're always sacrificing a certain amount of privacy, and we're sacrificing a whole lot of control over what's going on as soon as we have one of these right here connected to one of these, which is probably the most precious type of creature in our entire world, a little human being. So these companies are working to show us what they can do, and they'd never get off the ground. They'd never be able to implement anything if we stopped and thought about some of the things that could go wrong with it, right? So that's not going to happen. But it's just, it makes me really stop and think. Okay. You know, what is, am I seeing a little kid out there exploring the world of nature right now? Am I seeing a little kid out there getting her hands dirty and playing in the ground and, you know, rolling around in the grass and going out for a hike through the woods or near the pond? No, I'm seeing a little kid with a computer terminal and a monitor over here. And is this all that there is to life? Is this something that should be a substitution for what life might be for an old man like me who grew up in dirt? I did play in the dirt. I actually ate some dirt once in a while. It didn't kill me either. How life changes. Are we going to be making the quality of human life better? Were there other ways in the past that, let's say that this young lady has some sort of an ADHD issue, some sort of a thing going on where she could use a little bit of help in being able to retrain her mind and adapt and, you know, have mentorship and role model and example and people who would help her to utilize the best of her capabilities and minimize on some of her habits which interfere with being able to concentrate on things. That can all be trained by other human beings. This is the point I'm trying to make. This is something that's done by a family structure. It's done by good teachers. It's done by perhaps learning tools or learning toys, which help the mind in its ability to be plastic to grow in a direction which is more functional, more capable. Is this going to end well? I guess that's a question. And I just want to pose that question, not trying to draw any conclusions. Is it going to end well? Is that where we should go? Because we're going there. I think we're already there.
Yeah.
We're already there.
Yeah, you've got an iPad in every student's hand at this point, which possesses the hardware necessary for no contact brainwave monitoring.
Is this where we want to go?
It's that simple.
When you drive your car, I wish I could get all of this up on this. Let me try to reduce it a little bit. Is this where we want to go when you consider, there we go, when you consider the experience of driving your car? In the 1970s, I was a kid and technology was not deployed into automobiles at that time. And when I thought about, you know, driving the car, it was it conveyed a sense of freedom and possibility and exploration and meeting people, going to meet them in the physical world. And that's what having a car was like to me as a 16-year-old kid. Well, this is a whole lot different. And if, you know, if I was tired, somehow by some other means, if I was drowsy or if I had fatigue or cognitive load, there were other methods by which I restrained myself from misusing the car. Okay. But now we're using technology. Is that something that relieves people of being aware of whether they're fatigued or they're too busy or they're distracted or if they're stressed or tired or drowsy? It's just so hard because this is sold to us always as benefits, but the level of invasiveness that we sacrifice by allowing these things into our world is pretty big. It's pretty big. All right. So the experience of driving a car, from me, what it was then, is now going to be different going forward, because apparently all of these devices are going to be built into the next car that I own. Do you want a car like this, TMC? With this headrest?
No.
Whatever your favorite model of car is, your favorite make and model of car is, all right? I mean, I don't know, whatever, you know, Volkswagen, Nissan, I don't care. Do you, and when you want to get that new model, do you want this thing
Nope.
right behind your head, man.
No, because they can basically put you to sleep with that same thing.
Do you feel that if you're considering going out, utilizing your car, going somewhere, that you're able to make that discretionary judgment about whether you're fatigued, have too much cognitive load, you're too tired, you're stressed, or whether you're really up for a good ride out in the countryside? Do you feel that you can figure that out on board in your own mind without the assistance of a device like this?
I'm going to answer that with a different question.
Okay.
Do you think that public safety in general would benefit from regulation that mandates a computer decide that for every person?
Initially,
that's where we're going.
Initially,
it's going to be like a seatbelt.
All right. Initially, the answer would be yes. Secondarily, what we have to look at is what happens to that neuroplasticity of the brain. Once people become aware that they don't have to worry about whether they're drowsy or whether they have cognitive load or whatever, because the system, the onboard system, the empathic car cockpit is going to either tell them, you're too fatigued now, we're not going to let the engine start, or it's going to come in and it's going to send electromagnetic input into your brain to modify your drowsy state and bring you to a full state of alertness. So in other words, the brain, we at our onboard executive decision-making skill level in our own brains are going to start to become lazier and more dependent on that technology.
Yeah, well, it's also going to impact people's desire to maintain a good credit score, because what happens when, or social credit score. What happens when your social credit score becomes a factor as it relates to the leniency with which this Internet of Things car will allow you to go anywhere or not, and just claim it's because you're tired or fatigued, or I'm not sensing the right brainwave signature from you.
Right. So the answer to your question was, in the short run, it's going to have a positive impact. In the long run, it's going to be of no benefit at all. So you're going to go back to a net zero benefit.
It's a control mechanism.
And then we have to add in the detriment. The detriment is now everybody's going to start to learn, well, gee, I wonder if my car is going to let me drive today, right? Is my car going to let me drive today? Well, let me get in and push the power button and see if it will let me, because I'm not sure if I'm drowsy or fatigued, because we've lost one more level of executive awareness of ourselves in our own brains, and we've sacrificed our freedom. I'm sorry.
It's going to push people into automated vehicles. They're not going to want to deal with the risk of being late to work, or being late getting home, or being late picking up their child. And that will force them into an autonomous vehicle.
Carry it further, though. Let's say that your autonomous vehicle can manage to cart your sorry ass all the way to work, but you are drowsy and you are fatigued. So you get to work and you can't function. But that's okay. You sat in your chair in your office, and it has neurostimulators there also. And so what it can do is it can now bring you to a state of alertness so that you can function and do your job for your designated 8-hour shift or whatever it is.
You know what that's going to be like when you're not stimulated?
You're just not living. You're just like, you're just not alive. You're
going to be numb, and your brain will not be able to regulate itself on its own.
Exactly.
Without it's like being addicted to nicotine or
precisely.
Crack.
Yep. So given the fact that the brain is going to start to become slack, all of these areas, and I use that phrase again, executive management function. That's the higher level of the brain looking at the whole you, looking at your whole you. You know, it's like everything from the physical to the thought to your emotion to everything. Well, the more that those functions are taken over by something else, the less that we're going to be using our executive functions to take the responsibility to make sure that we are having a functional life. What would that mean? That would mean that you're going to know, you should know yourself whether you're too drowsy to get in the car and drive to work. And if so, one should go to sleep earlier the night before and maybe eat better food. I don't know. And then one should know and have that personal responsibility that once one has gotten themselves to work, that they are ready for business. They're ready to work. And if you're not, you're probably going to get fired and you're going to have no job and not be able to pay your bills. So we're sacrificing a whole lot of the power of our executive functions by way of using devices like this. I'll tell you flat out, I have already sacrificed a whole lot of my inner sense of direction by using a GPS. I've become lazy. I used to look at the sky, where the sun was in the sky, and kind of look at the layout of roads, and often might not get to the most direct path to it. But you know what? I use the GPS all the time, and I really depend on it. And I've lost a little bit of my own ability to chart my own course. Yeah, that's happened to me. And it's all because of GPS. Yeah. I guess it's a good thing. But without it, I'd be stumbling my way along around the countryside trying to figure out how to get from one town to the next until I got my skills back, until I got those, that navigational sense back again. So that's just GPS. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So, dude, this doesn't seem like it ends well.
It depends. It's gonna impact everybody differently. And neurostimulation is gonna be like coffee is to some people, which would be like exercises to other people, which will be like some type of a drug is to other people, or alcohol is to other people. When they got it, they're great, they're fine. When they don't, they're no good.
Exactly.
And that's what's going to happen when we get this bi-directional link that is established between computers and humans. If that link goes away, the stimulation that's provided in order to have that link function will ultimately take over the natural, biologic, or organic neural activity that's in your brain. It will supplement it, augment it, or take over. Correct. And when it's not there, it's going to be like not having a particular type of neurotransmitter or not having a particular type of fix like caffeine or
that's right,
cigarette or anything. It's gonna literally be like that, and that's people are going to have. There's going to be problems. There's going to be problems.
There are.
The more you use it, the more you're going to be dependent on
it. I agree. I see this on our future plate coming. There are going to be problems. We're going to find, whether it be we ourselves or just society in general, are going to be less adaptable, less capable. Okay, they're just not going to be able to do that. By the way, thanks again to MIT for allowing us to share this little video that they have here. They did a beautiful job on it. It's not going to end well.
Oh, it's you're going to. It's almost like your autonomy is going to be removed because of automation. Automating your brainwaves, automating your mood, automating your focus, automating your energy level with this stimuli is going to remove your autonomy, meaning that you can't do that on your own without the help, without the crutch, without the link, without the neurostim, without the neurostimulation. So the automation will ironically remove or take away your autonomy. And in the process, you will become autonomous or automated.
This is a brain neuron right here, by the way.
It's a brain neuron that has protein receptors that have been added into the genetic code in order for it to express light-sensitive, voltage-gated channels.
Right there.
Light-sensitive ion channels, excuse me.
Yep.
This is optogenetics.
Thereby, this induces a change of state in that neuron. So this is by way of light, targeted light at a certain frequency, causing that change. So this is one of the actual mechanisms by which they're going to, and this isn't the electromagnetic stuff that we were talking about, or the lower frequency electromagnetic stuff. This is light, but this is one of the methods by which they can exploit a neuron firing or not firing state using targeted light by having implanted these photoreceptors on the exterior surface of that brain neuron, just in case you were curious. We're kind of through with most of the body of the show right now, but just in case you were wondering what that was, just thought we'd tell you. See if I got another picture of it here. Back here, right there. There you go. When we look at this, which is the inside of the human brain, this is a wonderful, amazing work of nature. It is just, it's so complex. And it does so much, and it does it all by itself. You know, the human mind is utterly amazing. And we can teach ourselves. We can hone and tune our skills. We can choose to change behaviors and habits, break certain habits and reinstitute others. This is all part of that neuroplasticity of the brain. And when we're talking about doing the likes of, wherever I put it here, when we're talking about doing the likes of, not that, this stuff, talking about doing this, what kind of people do we want to become? When we free up those areas of our mind from doing these things like determining and managing whether we are drowsy or fatigued, or whether we're really concentrating, whether we're really at a very alert state, and we allow something else to either monitor it or control it, we're no longer the people that we were before. Now we're something else. And it's exactly the picture that you painted, TMC.
Yeah, there's going to have to be some way to exercise to compensate for this, because what's happening is that your natural functions are going to atrophy. Your body will adapt to the artificial stimulus.
Well, here's a
those
question
functions will atrophy.
What can we, we've got a certain amount of real estate and a certain amount of energy in the brain. What will we replace that extra brain time that we're no longer needing to use to make sure that we're in the proper state of mind to drive to work and then go to work and do the job? What are we going to replace those parts of our mind with? And what I'm not seeing is really good stuff that we get to replace it with. What I see is people being distracted. I see us generally becoming not, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that? The idea is this frees you up so that you can use your mind for other things, right? What are we going to use our minds for?
Yeah, no, it's, so I think some people are going to take to it very well and others will not. It's going to be like anything. And but it's going to become part of our society one way or another.
It's coming.
Yeah. So how we deal with it as a group is going to be different than how we deal with it individually. But it's going to create its own dependencies.
The group thrust usually seems that the group thrust is what sort of, I don't know, peer pressure, call it what you want, but where the majority of people going usually proves to be something extremely hard to resist, because programs and rules and social norms are all put in place whereby if you're not going along with what that is, then you're the odd man out. Hey, I mean, everybody uses their car to tell them whether they can drive or not. And if they can't, they just push the button and let the car do the driving. You know, if everybody adopts that, well, we've just fallen down one notch of human free will and human executive control of our lives right there, if that happens. Just what it is. Here we are, the end of 2020. We've had a great year doing this with y'all, and back when we were on our sister platform as well. And I want to thank everybody for all their support. We will be with you again, but it's going to be a new year when we are. And I don't know, man. Take us out. I'll play the outro. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight, including everybody out in chat and all of the subscribers that find us and appreciate us. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy holidays. I'll say Merry Christmas, even though it's technically over. Merry Christmas. And see you next year.
Night, everybody.